Good afternoon, everyone. In this presentation, I will be discussing the strategic behavior and dynamics behind the race to develop human insulin. In May 1976, Eli Lilly and Company hosted a conference on the possibility of developing synthetic human insulin. Synthetic insulin is made possible because of the emergence of recombinant DNA technology and opened the door for new competitors. Three teams emerged as major players in the race to develop human insulin. Genentech, headed by Herbert Boyer of UCSF, and venture capitalist Robert Swanson, with the support of City of Hope National Medical Center. Second group, headed by Howard Goodman and William Rutter of UCSF, is also a major force in recombinant DNA technology. The third competitor is from Harvard Biological Laboratories, headed by Walter Gilbert. The task for the UCSF and Harvard teams was to obtain the raw materials for isolating the rat insulin gene. While Joslin Research Laboratories promised both teams the gene, only Harvard got it. UCSF decided to extract it themselves, while Harvard unexpectedly got held up by political concerns. By the fall of 1976, the UCSF team had moved on to the second stage of the race. By January 1977, the UCSF completed the second stage and was ready to insert the insulin gene into bacteria. In the spring of 1977, Itakura at City of Hope succeeded in synthesizing the somatostatin gene, which was then sent up to Boyer at UCSF for analysis. In May 1977, the UCSF team announced that it had succeeded in cloning rat insulin. Meanwhile, Genentech succeeded in cloning the somatostatin gene in August 1977. Genentech succeeded in its expression experiment. A news conference was held on December 1st, 1977 to announce the success. In February 1978, the Harvard team succeeded in cloning and expressing the rat insulin gene. By May 1978, the Harvard results had been confirmed. Due to regulations and the NIH guideline required a human genetic material to be handled in a P4 facility, the Harvard team turned to the British Army's top secret microbiological research establishment in Portadown, England, for 4 weeks beginning in September 1978. While for UCSF, Eli Lilly built a P3 laboratory at a Lilly subsidiary in Strasbourg, France. In September, a member of the UCSF team left for France to perform cloning experiments. In the early morning hour of August 24th, 1978, the Genentech scientists successfully produced synthetic human insulin. Genentech then scheduled a news conference for September 6. Eli Lilly, as the organizer of this R&D race, wanted to pit three of the best teams in recombinant DNA field against each other to create tensions and to drive innovations to identify the best ideas and the most efficient team. Novel Industry, a dominant force in European insulin market, already established connections with Genentech, one of the three competitors in Eli Lilly's R&D race. Although they are not convinced of the recombinant DNA technology, they have proceeded with developing their own human insulin. Eli Lilly is currently facing the potential threat of Novel Industry developing human insulin before them. The company that successfully develops human insulin first will gain several advantages. Most notably, they will establish themselves as a market leader. By being the market leader, Eli Lilly can capture a significant amount of market share, build brand recognition, and acquire a loyal customer base over time. According to the case, the insulin market in the US has an annual sale of $200 million. making the R&D race a significant opportunity for Lilly's business. As a result, Lilly's stake in this race is very high, and winning will establish themselves as a market leader and pave the way for significant financial success. I chose to use a three-player three-stage game to model the insulin R&D competition. This three-player three-stage game consists of 27 possible scenarios. In each scenario, players can either advance to the next stage or remain stagnant. If a player, such as Harvard, reaches the third stage and advances, they win the game and receive the first place prize. In each of the stage, only one player can advance. If Harvard does not advance, the next player in order, UCSF, advances. If UCSF also does not advance, then Genentech advances. If Genentech does not advance, then Harvard advances to the next stage. In the case if all players are in the same stage, i.e. in stage 333, from Harvard's perspective, if Harvard advances, then Harvard receives the first place prize. If Harvard stagnates, then UCSF advances, and Harvard and Genentech both receives the second place prize. If one player advances, yet no one wins the game, i.e. in stage 323 from Harvard's perspective, if Harvard stagnates, then Harvard gets the payoff V333H. Since if Harvard stagnates, then UCSF must advance. Another example when one player wins the game and the remaining two players are at different stages, i.e. in stage 231 from Harvard's perspective. If Harvard stagnates, then UCSF advances and wins the game. Then Harvard receives the payoff of second prize, and Genentech receives third prize, since Harvard is one stage ahead of place 3. To determine the prize distribution, the first place winner receives a cash prize set at 100, awarded by Eli Lilly. The second place and third places receive lower prizes set as half of the first place prize, and the third place prize is half of the second place prize, resulting in 50 and 25, respectively. Considering the abilities of each team, I assume equal abilities for all three teams. To capture the performance, I introduce the parameter lambda, which represents the average number of discoveries made by a team in each stage. Each team has lambda equal to 1, indicating one discovery on average in each stage, which is required for advancing. Due to the risky nature of developing a new drug, as well as the lack of convincing track record from those institutions, any investor will require a higher return for taking on the risk and uncertainties. Therefore, the game will have a discount rate of 15% per period. At each stage of the game, we assess two critical factors for each team: the value of current stage and the R&D intensity associated with that stage. The value of current stage for a team can be calculated using the following approach. Let's consider Harvard as an example. The value of current stage for Harvard is determined by subtracting the probability of UCSF advancing multiplied by the price if UCSF advances, the probability of Genentech advancing multiplied by the price if Genentech advances, and the probability of neither team advancing multiplied by the cost of R&D in that stage. From the product of the probability of Harvard advancing and the price if Harvard advances. Once we obtain this expression, we discount it by 2% using the chosen discount rate. We assume a similar approach for the R&D intensity of current stage of Harvard, UCSF, and Genentech. For instance, to calculate Harvard's R&D intensity of the current stage, we differentiate the value of current stage for Harvard with respect to Harvard's R&D intensity, and then set equal to 0. We follow the same procedure for UCSF and Genentech, obtaining three equations that describe R&D intensities for the three teams. And next, we solve these three equations simultaneously, and therefore we can determine R&D intensity of current stage for each team. This methodology allows us to comprehensively assess the value of R&D intensity for each team at every stage of the game, providing valuable insights into their strategic decision-making process. Upon analyzing the values of current stage from Harvard's perspective, we can identify a consistent pattern. It becomes evident that the value of current stage is highest when the team is leading the competition. For instance, when Harvard is in stage 3, while UCSF and Genentech remains in stage 1, Harvard's value reaches its peak. Conversely, when Harvard lags behind the other two teams, such as when Harvard is in stage 1, while UCSF and Genentech are both in stage 3, Harvard's value is among the lowest. When all three teams are at the same stage, their values align closely with the prize for second place. This is a consequence of the game structure, wherein if Harvard stagnates, it will tie with Genentech for second place position while UCSF advances. As we have established earlier that if Harvard stagnates, UCSF must advance. Consequently, a significant portion of the value of the current stage will be derived from the second place prize. Regardless of the scenario, Harvard's value for current stage consistently remains higher when Harvard is leading the competition compared to when it's trailing. This observation highlights the strategic advantages of being ahead of the game, as it directly translates into higher value for the current stage. Teams strive to maintain a competitive edge to secure the maximum potential value at each stage, aligning with their ultimate goal of winning the game. Now let's focus on R&D intensities of the current stage from Harvard's perspective. Overall, the intensity reaches its peak during stage 333, when all teams engage in fierce competition, contesting for victory and aiming to claim the first place prize. This stage represents the pinnacle of R&D intensity, as teams exert their uttermost efforts to secure the top position. During stage 111, where all teams are at the same stage, Harvard maintains an intensity equal to that of the other two teams. However, when Harvard remains in stage 1 while the other two teams advance to stage 2, Harvard's intensity nearly doubles that of stage 111. This increase in intensity signifies Harvard's attempt to catch up with the competition, striving for a tie to secure the second place prize. Conversely, when Harvard remains stagnant in stage 1 while the other two teams progress to stage 3, Harvard's intensity is reduced to half of its intensity in stage 111. This reduction in intensity reflects the diminished chances for Harvard to compete for second place position, prompting the team to conserve resources and settle for the third place prize. To examine a more comprehensive approach, let's consider Harvard fixed at stage 3 while observing UCSF's progression. While UCSF is in stage 1, Harvard's intensity steadily increases as Genentech moves from stage 1 to 2 and from 2 to 3. Similarly, with Harvard fixed at stage 3 and UCSF now at stage 2, Harvard's intensity continues to rise as Genentech advances from stage 1 to 2 and then from stage 2 to 3. In both cases, the intensity for all three teams are higher when UCSF is in stage 1. Overall, each team tends to intensify its R&D efforts when it is only one stage behind the competition, striving for a tie in the second place. However, if a team falls significantly behind the competition, trailing by 2 stages, it will decrease its intensity to conserve resources, acknowledging the limited chance of catching up and aiming to secure the best possible outcome within their current position. Lastly, let's examine the expected time to win in the current stage for each team. The expected time are derived using a formula based on the Poisson distribution, specifically 1 over lambda multiplied by the intensity of the current stage. This formula provides insight into the time interval between events, or in our case, the duration required to progress to the next stage. The value 1 over lambda in the Poisson distribution represents the average interval between events. For our analysis, it signifies the time it takes for a team to advance to the next stage. Additionally, the expected time to reach the next stage is closely associated with each team's intensity of the current stage. When the R&D intensity is high, the expected time to reach the next stage shortens, and conversely, a lower intensity leads to a longer expected time. In summary, the expected time to win the current stage aligns closely with each team's R&D intensity of the current stage. Assuming equal probabilities for all three teams, in every game scenario, if a team's R&D intensity is high, the expected time to achieve victory is relatively short, whereas a low intensity corresponds to a longer expected time. By considering these expected times, we gain valuable insights into the dynamics of the game, providing a deeper understanding of each team's potential timeline to secure success in the current stage. In conclusion, we conducted a thorough analysis of 3 stages, 3-player game, taking into account equal probabilities amongst the team, introduced prices for different ranks, and factored into discount rate. Using game theory model and payoff tables, we explore the value, R&D intensities, and expected time to winning the current stage for each team. Our findings highlight that the team's strong preference for establishing a substantial lead in order to maximize the value of current stage. In situations where all teams are in the same stage, their value closely align with the second place prize. However, when the teams fall behind in the competition, the value for the current stage significantly decreases, approaching the third place prize. Furthermore, we delve into the R&D intensity of each team and discover that it reaches its peak when all teams are in the same stage, resulting in a fierce competition. While the R&D intensity remains relatively high when one team is only 1 stage behind, it does not reach the same level as when all 3 teams are on the equal footing. Notably, R&D intensity is at its lowest when a team falls significantly behind the competition. Lastly, we examine the expected time to winning the current stage, which is directly influenced by each team's R&D intensity during this stage. High intensities correspond to shorter expected times, while lower intensities lead to longer expected times. This demonstrates the clear relationship between R&D intensity and the time required to secure victory in the current stage. By analyzing these various aspects of the game, we gain valuable insights into the strategic behavior and dynamics of the 3-player competition. This is the end of presentation. Thank you for listening.